Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm glad to see you again in the subject administrative law. Let me introduce myself. My name is Nasrullah. I'm your lecturer in the subject. In this opportunity, we would like to discuss about the sources of administrative law. Okay, there are some issues to be discussed in this presentation. First, what is meant by sources of law? Second, what is meant by the statement that Pancasila as the source of all sources of the law? Number 3, what are the material sources of administrative law? And last but not least, what are the formal legal sources of administrative law? Okay, let's start from the first issue. Meanings of sources of law. When you heard the word source or the sources of law, so what do you understand about that? Okay, first, sources of law could be understood as the principles of the law. It could also be understood as a previous law that provide materials for the current law or present law. Sources of law, it could also be understood as a source from which we can identify the law, from documents, legal document, from legislation, from papyrus, and etc. And everything that raise the rules that have courtship in nature, it is a source of the law. Okay, now we move to the second issue. There is a famous doctrine found in Article 2, the Law Number 12, 2011 on enactment of legislation. The statement is Pancasila as the source of all sources of the state law. So what is the meaning of this statement? Okay, before knowing the meaning of that statement, let's know first the meaning of Pancasila. Pancasila consists of from the word Panca, that means pillars. Panca means 5, and Sila means pillars. So Pancasila is the 5 pillars, the 5 pillars of the state, or the state is founded, on these 5 pillars. These 5 pillars are belief in the one and the only God. Second, just and civilized humanity. The third, the unity of Indonesia. Fourth, democracy guided by the inner wisdom in unanimity arising out of deliberation amongst the representatives. And fifth, social justice for all of the people of Indonesia. Okay, why Pancasila plays the role as the source of all sources of the state law? It is because Pancasila as the state ideology or starts idea and as the basic philosophy of the state or philosophy's Grondslag. Consequently, the entire implementation and operation of the state, especially in legislation, in lawmaking process, must be derived from the value of Pancasila. Every legislation, every law that made must be in line with Pancasila. If any law, any legislation contradicts the spirit of Pancasila, so that law or that legislation must be revoked, must be considered as null and void. As the state ideology or basic philosophy of the state, the formulation of Pancasila is found in the Constitution, especially in paragraph 4 of the preamble of the Constitution. It is stated in this paragraph, therefore, the independence of Indonesia shall be formulated into Constitution of the Republic of Indonesia, which shall be built into a sovereign state based on a belief in one and only God, just and civilized humanity, the unity of Indonesia, and democratic life led by wisdom of thoughts in deliberation amongst the representative of the people, and achieving social justice for all people of Indonesia. Okay, let's go to the third issue, the sources of law. The sources of law can be classified into material sources of law and second, formal sources of law. Material sources of law means factors influence the content of law. They are habits among people who adhere to a code of conduct that remain, legal policy of government, beliefs about religion and morality, legal awareness, economic structure and community needs, and so on and so forth. Material sources of law, according to Van Vollenhoven, can be classified into historical sources of law, philosophical sources of law, and sociological sources of law. What is the meaning of historical sources of law? Historical sources of law, history. It is could be act and written law applied at certain time and place in the past. Document and letters received from the past time could be used as positive law at the current time. Second, sociological or anthropological sources means all factors in the society which influence the content of positive law, including economic thought, religious thought, and philosophy or psychology. And last, philosophical sources of philosophy means measures to determine justice and factors that influence people to obey the law. Now, formal sources of the law. What are the formal sources of the law? Formal sources of law, it is form of existing laws and regulation, laws as a place to find legal provision. It is classified into written and unwritten sources. The written sources from where the sources of law can be found, it is mentioned in Article 7, Paragraph 1 of the Law Number 12, 2011, the Law on Enactment of Legislation. There are basic hierarchy of written sources of the law includes first, Constitution, 1945 Constitution. Second, the decree of the People Representative Assembly, ketetapan Majelis Permusyawaratan Rakyat. The third, the law and a law in lieu, government regulation in lieu of law or interim law, undang-undang dan peraturan pemerintah pengganti undang-undang. Number 4, government regulation. Number 5, presidential regulation. And then regional regulation of province. In the lowest is peraturan daerah kabupaten atau kota, regional regulation of regency and city. There are many other legislation or admitted as legislation beside what are found in Article 7, Paragraph 1 of Law Number 12, 2011. Include regulations set by the People Consultative Assembly. House of Representative, Regional Representative Council, the Supreme Court, Constitutional Court, Supreme Audit Board, the Judicial Commission, the Central Bank of Indonesia, the legislation that made by ministers, by body, by agency or commission level formed by law or government ordered by the Act, and Provincial House of Representative Regulation, Governor's Regulation, House of Representative of District or Town Regulation, regulation made by region, by mayor, even by village heads or equivalent. It is found in Article 8, Paragraph 1 of Law Number 12, 2011. Meanings, this legislation also considered as formal and written sources of administrative law. In Article 8, Paragraph 2 of Law Number 12, 2011, say that legislation referred to in Paragraph 1 shall be acknowledged and have binding legal force, throughout, ordered by legislation that is higher or established pursuant to the authority. Beside written sources of the law, sources of administrative law, there are also some unwritten sources of administrative law. The term of unwritten laws, it refers to the provision in Article 1, Paragraph 2 of TAP MPR, TAP MPR, the decree of People Representative Assembly, number 3 MPR 2000 on sources of law and hierarchy of laws and regulation, stipulates that sources of law consist of written and unwritten laws. So what are the types of unwritten law? It consists of custom, kebiasaan, or convention, which can be classified as source of law in customary law, which is differentiated from ordinary custom. Customary laws, hereinafter custom, encompass rules that even though not enacted by the state or its subordinate authority, are applicable as law. There are two requirements for custom to have the binding power of law. First, there has to be similar conduct in similar condition to which society has always abided to. And second, there has to be opinio juris sive necessities of such conduct, meaning a belief in the society that such conduct is binding as law, or there is legal belief in the society. Adat law, it is also unwritten. Adat law, hukum adat or adat reh, is a set of local and traditional laws and dispute resolution system in many parts of Indonesia. Van Vollenhoven classified adat law into 23 subdivisions based on combination of region and ethnicity. Its sources are unwritten laws evolving from maintained by legal awareness of the people. Adat law is principle also part of custom, but it is distinguished due to its close attachment to ethnicity. Sharia law, Sharia law principle, it is also unwritten source of law. Originally, Sharia law can be found to be a commanding principle in marriage and in written law for Muslim and applied by court of religion. Another example of Sharia law application is that a unique status of the province of Negara Aceh Darussalam. Under law number 11 year 2006 on Aceh government, it is the only province in Indonesia which its government is founded among others by Islamic principle, which will be further regulated under Kanun Aceh. Doctrine, doctrine also unwritten sources of law. Doctrine is opinion of law from jurists or legal scholars. It is also classified as unwritten. Doctrine is applied to interpret a general conception of law within other legal sources or to provide explanation on ambiguity of laws. Doctrine is in and of itself does not have a binding power. It will have a binding power when it is used as consideration in a court decision. Jurisprudence, also unwritten sources of law. Court decision commonly referred to as jurisprudence or case law or judgment law do not have a binding power other than for the presence of or parties being subjected to that decision. Why? This is because Indonesia, as a civil law country, which ascribed to European continental legal system following Dutch tradition of law, which does not adopt stare decisis principle. Okay, that's all for today. As conclusion, so we have discussed the sources of law. The sources of law can be classified into material sources of law and formal sources of law. We have also discussed about Pancasila as the source of all sources of the law. We have also discussed about the meaning of sources of law itself. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you for your attention. Let's end this session with recitation of Hamdalah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.